Good evening, friends. Myself, Dr. Nidhi Darbari, on My Education Treasure. In my previous video on stimulus variation skill, I had discussed about the various forms and factors of stimulus variation. Today, in my present video, I am going to tell you about the components of stimulus variation skill. Components of skill of stimulus variation of micro teaching. The following components of stimulus variation skill influences the teaching learning process effectively. Teacher's movement, teacher's gesture, sensory focus, change in voice, change in interaction pattern, pausing, audio visual switching, students' movement, teacher's movement. Moving objects are capable of capturing more attention than non moving and static. This is called kinesthetic variation and causes students' attention to be focused directly on the teacher. Therefore, the movement of the teacher in the class is essential, and the students feel that the teacher is with them and his participation in instructional activities is being supervised by the teacher. However, all types of movements do not bring fine results. The excess of physical activities is undesirable, and the teacher without these activities is like a stone idol. Varying movements means making movements from one place to another with some purpose. There should not be any aimless wandering in the classroom. Thus, a teacher, while practicing the skill of stimulus variation, should learn to make well planned, meaningful physical movements for securing and sustaining the attention of students. For example, making movements from one place to another with purpose for writing on the blackboard, to conduct experiment, to explain the chart or model, to pay attention to the student who is responding to some question, etc. This applies to the study of body movements, gestures, posture, eye and facial behavior and their role in communication. The eyes tend to be attracted to and follow movement. The body movements perform numerous pedagogical functions like emphasizing the importance of shape, size, and movement of the object being taught, explaining emotions and feelings, combining verbal exposition with gestures. For example, if discussing the shape of an object, one can use the hand to show the shape of the object. Good teachers move smoothly and naturally at the same time purposefully. Teacher's gesture. The oral message alone is not as effective in conveying meaning as an oral message combined with gestural cues. Gestures are the movements of the parts of the body of the teacher which communicate certain meaningful ideas to the students. These include movements of head, hand, and body parts, eye movements, facial expression to express emotions or to indicate shapes, sizes, and movements. All these acts are performed to become more expressive. Gestures also prove helpful in making the lesson effective in the classroom. These include facial gestures like laughing, raising eyebrows, emotions, signals of eyes, nodding, hand signals, signals to stop, signals to continue the task, and signal to keep quiet, etc. For it, the teacher can move hands and figures to describe things, measurements, etc. While talking, show agreements by nodding head to encourage the students to go on explaining. Show wonder by raising eyebrows high to show interest in what the students are talking about. Use mimics to show agreements, disagreements, wonder and belief, anger or incomprehension. Clasp hands to attract the student's attention or to show happiness, wonder, etc. The next component is sensory focus. The verbal statements and gestures together are known as verbal cum gesture focusing or sensory focus. Students' ability to take in and process information will be increased significantly when the sense of sight and sound are alternately appealed. Varying the senses that students are using as students might require to touch, see, smell, feel, etc. The component of focusing of the skill of stimulus variation refers to the behaviors that help in focusing students' attention on a particular object, word, idea, rule, concept, method, formula, or generalization during teaching. Focusing can be used when the teacher wants to direct the student's attention to a particular point which they are required to observe. The teacher draws the attention of the students to the particular point in the lesson either by using verbal or gesture focusing or by some combination of both. In verbal focusing, in the verbal focusing, the teacher repeats again and again to concentrate the attention, such as look here, all the students, attend to me, don't see outside because I am going to announce something important, listen to me, note it carefully, look at this diagram, listen carefully to this. Now, here's something really important. Watch what happens when I connect these 2 points. Look at the map, listen carefully, watch carefully. Now the next step is really important, etc. These statements help the teacher draw students' attention to key learning points. In gestural focusing, in the gesture focusing, the attention of the students are concentrated with the help of gestures towards some desirable objects like pointing towards some object with fingers or underlining the important words on the blackboard, pointing with hand, raising eyebrows or shoulder, smiling or frowning, bangs the dry erase blackboard for emphasis, nodding of head, etc. Combination of verbal and gestural focusing. When both verbal and gesture focusing devices are used to focus the attention of students, it has more impact on them. For example, when the teacher asks the students look at the diagram and at the same time draw the diagram on the blackboard, he will be able to help students properly to understand the concept. Supporting a statement with gesture, for example, using a pointer on an overhead projector while saying this is the direction the water will flow, and holding up 2 fingers and saying there are 2 things you should remember, tapping at a point on the chalkboard diagram and stating this is where the attack took place. Very good, and nodding of head at a time, making movements from one place to another with some purpose for writing on the blackboard, to conduct experiments, to explain the chart or model, to pay attention to the student who is responding to some question, etc. The sensory focus influences the attention of the students. Some changes can be brought about through judicious combination of various means of communication. The teacher can explain a step, demonstrate it, then have students to try it. The teacher shows a transparency on a screen, turns the projector off and comments verbally, then shows the transparency once more. The teacher tells students about the differences in texture between wool and silk, have students feel actual samples of wool and silk, then verbally clarifies the difference further. The teacher flashes a slide on the screen, turns the projector off and comments on the slide, turns the slide back on, then after turning the projector off again, have students draw what they have seen. Changes in voice. Constant use of the same level of pitch, tone, and speed by the teacher makes his communication dull, inactive, and has an adverse effect, and the students feel bored. He should bring change in tone, volume, or speed in his voice. Variations of voice by the teacher is directly noticed by the student, and it has direct influence in capturing the attention of the students and creates interest in the lesson. When the teacher wants to put emphasis on a particular point, sudden or radical changes in tone, volume, or speed of the verbal presentation are brought out. The teacher should speak attractively, energetically, and loudly enough for the students at the back to hear what the teacher is saying, but not too loud so that the student at the front gets shocked. Changes in the interaction style. We are social beings who learn from one another. When two or more persons communicate their views with each other, they are said to be interacting. The process of teaching is an interactive process where teacher and student participate in a reciprocal manner. Therefore, in the classroom, communication between the teacher and student goes on constantly as initiatory or responsive acts. This communication is called interaction. For bringing effectiveness in his teaching, a teacher is supposed to learn the art of bringing in interaction style by switching over from one interaction style to another depending upon the type of content. Therefore, the style of interaction in the classroom should go on changing. The interaction is broadly of two types, verbal and non-verbal. Verbal interaction is when the teacher or student communicates verbally, and non-verbal interaction is operation through gestures without talking. All type of interaction should go side by side to secure and sustain students' attention. The deliberate patterning of these interaction styles serves to vary the context within which content is covered. Variation in interaction is very essential in the classroom, otherwise, the classroom interaction will become monotonous. Students are more actively involved when the teacher uses question and answer. When they are asked a question, they feel good about adding to the development of a lesson. Students also like to interact with each other. Students of all ages learn through social interaction in which understanding is mediated and elaborated. Peers sometimes explain things to each other better than the teacher can. In the classroom, there are three main styles of interaction between the teacher and students, such as teacher group interaction. Teacher talks to class and vice versa, that is, teacher conveys and gets response from the class as a whole. The teacher is presenting to all students, asking questions of the group at large, and is non-specific in the presentation. Teacher-student interaction. Teacher talks to students and vice versa. Here, the teacher tries to make a point with or from one student or ask a particular student a question. Student-student interaction. Here, a teacher employs many students in a dialogue without doing direct discussion. The teacher can take a student's response and direct it to another student for comments. Another technique is for a teacher to have one student explain something to another student. The next component is change in audio-visual sequence. If the teacher is giving information to the student through only one medium, that is oral, visual, or oral visual, for a long time, it is possible that the students may lose attention to what the teacher is conveying to them. Therefore, it is essential for the teacher to vary medium rapidly in order to secure and sustain students' attention to what he says, that is, from audio to visual, visual to audio, audio to visual to audio visual. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to my video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. A continuous change in the sequence of using audio-visual aids concentrates the attention of the students upon the teacher. Oral. The teacher gives information to the class verbally about something is oral medium. Visual. When the teacher is showing maps, charts, objects, pictures, models or drawing pictures, figures and graphs on the blackboard without saying something is visual medium. Oral to visual. The teacher can shift focus from oral to oral visual and vice versa. While explaining a point, if one shows a chart or a model, switching from oral to visual, and after showing the chart, the teacher again starts speaking, switching from visual to oral mode, it is oral to visual. Visual to oral. Visual when the teacher demonstrates the experiments silently and then explains the phenomena with the help of charts, maps, diagram, etc. is visual oral switching. These devices are used interchangeably to secure and sustain students' attention to the lesson. The next component is pausing. Silence speaks volume. Silence is golden. Pausing means stop talking by the teacher for a moment. The effectiveness of silence as an attention demanding behavior is well known. The teacher should use pauses of 3 or 4 seconds in the teaching process as and when the need arises until students also observe silence. When the teacher becomes silent during teaching, it at once draws the attention of the student with curiosity towards the teacher. The message given at this point is easily received by the student. If the pause is long, it loses its effectiveness in serving students' attention. Pausing can be used in different ways to show disapproval for students' misbehavior, to emphasize an important point, to give students time to make notes before continuing with the lecture or dictation, to create suspense and arouse thinking, to provide time for students to think for something before they respond, to promote students' participation by drawing encouragement and opportunity to comment or question, to draw attention by contrasting speech with silence. Students' movement. Students' movement refers to the introduction of the change in the types, forms, and styles of the physical involvement of the student in the class. The teacher can change the focus of attention of the students by involving them in physically doing something and sustain their interest and attention in the teaching learning process. They may be engaged in dramatization, in writing on the blackboard, participating in the demonstration, or handling apparatus, etc. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video and don't forget to subscribe.